if emes is emes and emes is emes, then you would think that if you're learning emes, how could you go wrong?
So I'd say, the classic answer: don't judge Judaism by the Jews. It's usually, your relationship with Hashem, with God, is intrinsically a trust relationship. It's based on you believing that you have a certain give and take relationship. In other words, you give, you do what Hashem wants you to do, and then He rewards you. So based on that, depending, often what I find, dealing with so many different people over the years, is often Yiddishkeit has a lot to do, and a person's relationship with Hashem has a lot to do with their relationship with their parents. Often with, if there was some kind of broken relationship with either parent, but often with the father, that can translate into a more challenging relationship with Hashem as a father. On the other hand, it can also work with a mother, if there was a troubling relationship with a mother, then that can translate into a person finding it more difficult to relate to Hashem in terms of a loving, motherly, kind of warm, just accepting kind of relationship. Even though, of course, Jewish mothers aren't necessarily always known for their absolute acceptance. Unless their son happens to be absolutely perfect. But
aren't all Jewish sons Mashiach in their mother's eyes?
Basically.
Yeah. So, Rabbi Borger, I'm going to look away from you for a second and look at this teleprompter to introduce you.
Okay, that's fine.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have the honor of sitting here with Rabbi Moshe Borger. He is a co-founder of the Renewal Ohr Chodosh Program at Ohr Somayach. It was started this past year together with Rabbi Mendel. It's a program for 20 to 30-year-old FFBs, or from birth, that have gotten disconnected or never felt really connected with their Judaism and Torah. Rabbi Borger was a UK liaison for Ohr Somayach and other yeshivot through JLE UK for 20 plus years. He is a trained but not practicing therapist and recently became a grandfather. Mazal tov.
Thank you so much.
How's it being a grandfather?
It's amazing, indescribable. Just to think that you've reached the next generation. It's an amazing feeling. So we've just heard that actually they're coming to us for Pesach. So very excited.
How new is new?
She just turned recently just turned 1. So Baruch Hashem.
What is it about being like a grandparent that gives so much spark?
It's just an excitement of seeing that there's a continuation of the legacy and of all the things that you've put in and just and invested, and now being able to see that in the next generation. It's part and parcel, I suppose, of, it's nice to see like how my son and daughter-in-law, how they what good parents they are, Baruch Hashem. And
do you just sit back and like watch them struggle as new parents, or are they new parents?
Yeah, relatively. It's their first child.
I have a friend who, whenever like his friends are like about to have a kid or something, he laughs and goes, "You have no idea what you're in for whatsoever." So like, I wonder what it's like from a perspective of having raised children and now watching your children raise a child.
Yeah, so there definitely can be that sadistic side of like, okay, now they have to deal with their daughter, crying. But it's nice to see how well-rounded they are in terms of being able to deal with things. I think in certain ways they're actually they're doing better than I remember doing at that stage. And I remember like running, as soon as my oldest, who's the father, would cry or do anything, we would just run after him. But they're much more chilled. They're like they kind of like they got it in their in their bones, and they're used to like a different kind of family. I and my wife come from much smaller families, so this is they're both used to coming from both my sons and daughter-in-law coming from like much bigger families. So kind of like they're used to it, I suppose.
I want to get back into this idea that one's relationship with God really stems from the relationship that they have with their parents. Can you go into that a little bit more? How does the relationship with a parent affect the child's belief in God?
A parent is essentially a caregiver to their child, and that is that's the example. It's the that child grows up with of all of the understandings of caregiving, of love, support that child goes through in their life. And therefore, especially in the formative years, it's very, very fundamental that a child is getting the right kind of messages from their parents. So the rabbis say, you have to push with the left, but you have to pull with the right, and they say you have to pull with the right a lot more than you push with the left.
What do you mean pull with the right and push with the left? Like,
so the right is more representative of chesed, of loving kindness, of love, and the left is more strength. It's more judgment. So you have to have this balance, and in psychology, they call it the 4-to-1 rule. Or the 5-to-1 rule. Like 80% of your interactions with your child should be positive, and only 20% should be negative. Can be negative. If you have that kind of balance, and I think even negative is not necessarily the right word. It can be more punitive or kind of more controlling as a parent. So I think that's that's a struggle that parents have, is to give over that positivity to their kids. So if they don't, then the relationship with Hashem is we know that we trust that Hashem is the one who's providing everything for us, who's giving us everything, who cares for all of our needs. So if I was growing up in a family and I asked my dad to come and meet me at a certain time, and every time he comes there late, so then I'm going to start to build up. First of all, I'll build up a little bit of resentment. I'll probably build up a little bit of possibly fear. In other words, like, where is he? And also like I just. That whether or not I want to, there'll be just this element of distrust. Like, I asked him to be here at this time, and he's not here at this time. So then, when you carry that over, and that's very similar to what a parent and others like to that loving, caring, giving relationship is very similar to what a parent does for their child. If you translate that into an infinite creator who we can't see, but at the same time that we believe is interactive in our lives, so then it makes it even more difficult for a person who's gone through those kinds of challenges, stroke, traumas in their childhood, to really be able to relate to God as being a loving father, and therefore what sometimes then happens is either it becomes like a bargaining thing, like, if I do good for you, then you do good for me.
Well, yeah, because you had mentioned earlier when you were talking about the relationship with God is that you do something and you get reward from it. Now, I've had a couple people on the podcast who have different ideas of viewing a relationship just in general, and especially with HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this manner of like, I'll do for you, I'll do this, and I'll get reward for it. It's kind of like this I'll do for you, you do for me type of relationship.
Right. So, but I said that as that's often the way that we look at the relationship, but that's not the way that ideally the relationship should be. Ideally, the relationship should be one of believing that that Hashem is my loving Father in heaven, and that He only ultimately wants my good. He only wants the best for me. He's given me multiple different ways to connect to Him, which is the different mitzvot that He's given us, and therefore He gives us those opportunities to connect. And we're not really we shouldn't be doing it for the sake of reward. Specifically, that's something that's just a natural outcome anyway, wherever that will be, whether that will be in this world or whether that will be in the next world. When things are happening that are challenging, in other words, when we have tests in life, the core underlying belief should be that Hashem is controlling all of this, and ultimately it's for my good, either for me to grow from this or for me to overcome, I suppose, a certain challenge, or to have some kind, or to be given some kind of lesson from this that I'm going to be able to utilize in the future. That's the way that it should be, and therefore ultimately everything that happens to us is ultimately for the good.
So how do you like combat or help to repair somebody's relationship with Hashem that's been broken? I mean, and you can probably go more into the Ohr Chodosh program that you helped founded, because I imagine this is something you deal with and work with.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of these boys that never connected, or did and then stopped connecting, are talking about, the uncomfortable yid syndrome, just coming from religious background.
I should make that a T-shirt. Uncomfortable yid syndrome. Nice.
Uncomfortable, and it really is. So number one, I mean, we do work with therapists, with psychiatrists, because many of these boys are suffering from some kind of trauma, some kind of traumatic episodes that have happened in their lives. Sometimes, sometimes it is to do with their parents. Often it is to do with their parents. Not to blame the parents, because all parents are really ultimately, usually, are trying their best as parents. But we're all on a journey. So that includes people that have grown up religious or became Bali Tshuva, and are now bringing up a family. They still have their things that they need to work on. So we we definitely take the route of therapy. We definitely take the route of giving these boys a lot of love, which is often what they're missing in a certain way. Sometimes it will be experiences that they've had in their education. It's like the system is a good system, but no system is perfect. And as we just said, people are not perfect. Nobody created. We were not. That's why we're here. So that's why you have to choose your profession well, and person who has anger issues should not be a teacher. But unfortunately, there are way too many people who have anger issues who are teachers. And plus, of course, they're bringing,
Sorry, no,
Go ahead.
continue.
Yeah, I was going to say, and plus often they're bringing everything that's going on outside in their life into the classroom, which is obviously like a very difficult shift to make. In other words, I was just, Shalom Bias was just having some issue, Shalom Bias, and now he comes into school, into yeshiva, and he's teaching, so he's obviously going to be more on edge, and it's a big challenge for a person to be able to separate their private life and their life as being a teacher.
Do you see often then that, because I have a decent amount of friends that have come through the like yeshiva day, I guess you could call it like day school growing up, and a lot of them had gone off the derech. Do you find that the way the education system is within the religious community is part of the reason that these Bacharim need help?
Yes, there definitely can and should be improvements in the educational system, which is what we're trying to incorporate into Ohr Chodosh. Sometimes it's the format of the curriculum, how they study. Some places they're going over and over the same material, Mishnayos, Gemara, learning off by heart, not necessarily analyzing so much, which doesn't necessarily give the student as much of a sense of accomplishment. Sometimes it's that they're just they're not everybody is necessarily cut out for certain types of studying. I found that the system is really developing and radically changing in different places, particularly here in Israel, and I know in other places in America, in England, they are well aware now of kids with ADHD, of kids with anxiety, and all the other things that people are generally suffering from more today than they were, I believe, in previous generations. So the system is gradually evolving, improving. At the same time, there's always going to be those kids that aren't going to be the typical, profile of that kind of yeshiva.
There's always the out of the box kind of people.
Out of the box kind of kids, and then of course there's all the outside distractions. There's drugs, alcohol, girls, with phone.
I was going to ask, why do you think more people are having trouble with more people are having trouble in this generation than past?
So
I feel like you've been hitting on it. Yeah.
So you did pick up on it.
Thanks.
Sharp
as a tack.
Sharp as a tack. Sharp as a tack. Hell yeah. So I believe that it's because of, at least a big part of it is to do with the pace of life today, with technology, which is something which has become a part of our lives in every area, in terms of banking, in terms of living life normally. There's such a fast pace of life. Believe it's also to do with the globalization, including, of course, in other words, on the internet, everybody is being exposed to all different kinds of things that they would never would have known about. So now, my guys will tell me, oh, by the way, did you hear about this terror attack in France this morning? I'll tell them, no, I didn't hear about it. And I generally myself try to keep as much as I can away from. I don't really have social media except for WhatsApp, and of course I use email. I just find that that news is generally is bad news sells, good news doesn't sell, and therefore people are being exposed to this constantly, and they don't realize in their subconscious how much of an impact it's making on them. Children are growing up with embedded fears. It's even in the religious world, for example, with comics. Most comics today, at least in Israel, have some element to do with terrorists, or
What do you mean?
Meaning, in other words, like in your.
I don't think I've ever read like a Israeli comic book.
So in your average, there are many comic books that are offered today in the Haredi world, of course in the Dati Leumi world as well, and a lot of it is really surrounding the topic of fear. Fear of being harmed, fear of being attacked. Even my 3-year-old is like talking about like the azaka, about the siren. Now, of course, that's not something that. But then when you're reading about it, you internalize it a lot more. When people are seeing filmed terror attacks and watching them. So on the one hand, we become very numb to it. But on the other hand, that's only, I believe, on the conscious level. But subconsciously, we're really taking that in as fear, and therefore many people have to learn how to deal with their fears, anxieties, which then often come out.
But how do we deal with our fear and anxieties if, I apologize for interrupting, but how do we deal with our fear and anxieties if the society that is supposed to be kind of protecting us from this is actually feeding it to us? Because when you're telling me that there are comic books, especially within the Haredi community, that are pushing fear and this idea of being attacked or something, that's in my head like propaganda to push a type of fear about a certain type of people, because we live in an area and a place of, there's a certain type of people that, cause, from my standpoint, the majority of terror within the country.
Right. So I think the underlying message of these comic books at the end of the story is that it ends with a happy ending and everyth's good.
The Haredi style
and
Disney.
Hashem took care of everything. And in the Dati Leumi ones, you'll find that which are many, I won't say many times because I don't know enough, but will be about like somebody who's a chayal, and he goes out and he fights and he has some miraculous story that he got saved by Hashem. So so I think that the theory behind it is that this is going to help because the kids are anyway so aware of these different things. This is almost a way of allowing them to experience it and then to come through it happier and feeling more secure at the end of the day, rather than ignoring it as if it doesn't exist. Let's rather tackle this by making this, putting elephant in the room. Let's put it right out there, and then let's deal with it. And the truth is, I do see that for example, with my kids, they're a lot more kind of calm about their fears in certain ways, and I think it could be that contributes to it, that they're able to confront it and then to see that there was something good at the end. And another underlying message is the concept of Emuna, that Hashem is in control. He's protecting us, and so I think there are good messages there. I was kind of trying to swing away a little bit from blaming social media, and but obviously in terms of global news, it's that definitely provokes I believe a lot more anxiety in people, because even people working with algorithms, if your phone figures out that you enjoyed that news flash about a terror attack, so they'll put another one and another one and another one, and that's just not going to help a person in terms of feeling secure.
The more I listen to these podcasts, because yes, I do listen to my own podcasts. I edit them, and so I listen back to them as I'm editing them. And at least within the first few that I've done, listening back to them, I can hear myself kind of parroting almost like secondhand what I've heard myself. But I feel like I sound ignorant. Like I know I sound ignorant to myself, because I know that I'm, for the most part, kind of parroting secondhand what I've heard other people say to me. And these are people that I believe that I trust. But at the same time, it's why don't I know that myself? Why haven't I read that myself? So I feel that there is a need and a necessity to listen to the news and listen to and read things outside maybe the box that you're in, and it's something that I'm pushing myself towards with every ignorant word that I utter. I'm like, I have to fix this. But where do you find the balance between allowing yourself to take in kind of like outside information, but also keeping yourself protected within, I want to say, bubble or community that you're in, which is the Haredi community?
My personal approach is that I read a lot about Emuna. I recently started reading a sefer called Emuna Yomit by Rav Lugasi. There's also that Rabbi David Asher's Living Emuna. I try and get like a dosage. If I can't get a breakfast, lunch, and dinner in, then at least I try to get like some breakfast in there, and that just changes my perspective on all of the events that are happening in the world. At the same time, also tefillah is something I very much work on. I talk to Hashem in my tefillah very openly about my personal feelings, experiences. I'll talk to Hashem if I'm feeling afraid or anxious about something. I'll talk to Hashem about it. I'll say, Hashem, please take this away from me. Tugar boy, like rebuke the Yetzer Hara that he shouldn't make me feel like this now, and that therefore gives me a good way of having, I think, a balance. And honestly, that's one of the things that I've been focusing on in Ohr Chodosh, in Renewal, is tefillah and Emuna, and the reason why we're doing mitzvahs. That combination of those three things, I think, is so core to every single Jew, because without that, if you don't have that relationship with Hashem through tefillah, you're not talking to Him, you're not open with Him, you're missing something. If you're not working on your emunah, then things will just become overwhelming. And throughout the day, there's so many different things that happen to us. If we don't have our emunah antenna on, then we'll just interpret those events as, I was just thinking back when I was in Ohr today. Sorry to keep on bringing up Ohr, but
no, it's okay. It's okay. Ohr comes up a lot less now that I don't work there. But when I worked at Ohr, it was like everywhere I went, everyone somehow knew that I worked at Ohr. No shirt, no nothing. I went to Tel Aviv once. I got off the train. Immediately, someone came up to me and was like, "Do you know where Ohr is?" I'm like, "No." Like I work at the Ohr in Talpiot. Why are you asking me about Ohr in Tel Aviv? How do you even know that I'm an Ohr person? Is it just like on my face? But
did they actually know? Did they actually know? Or
no,
it was just,
I didn't
it was
know.
just
It was just some random person. Some random person came up to me and was like, "Do you know where Osherod is?" I'm like, "No, just leave me alone. I don't know the sales, nothing."
Okay.
But I digress.
So we'll leave out the
No, you
the
can-
name of that store.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I have to get over it.
Okay. So I was, last year in Osherod, somebody stole my agala, stole my cart, and emptied out all the contents, and
Chutzpah.
a chutzpah, yeah, and I was just thinking back to it today, and in retrospect, by the way, my reaction was that I actually I tracked this woman down, and I confronted her, and I said, like, that's my cart, and it was a little bit unpleasant because I tried to get the cart back, and
Did you fight an old lady?
I wasn't an old lady. It was a a middle-aged lady. I wasn't literally fighting, but that's my cart, and I'd like to get it back. And then when I look back now, it just clearly was a test. It was. I think I did the right thing by confronting, but I definitely learned a lesson not to react in the more extreme, in a more extreme way. I would have certainly taken things a lot easier this time around. So again, if your Emuna antennae are on, then you can take an event like that and just say, okay, this is just a challenge that is here to test me. It's here to test my patience, etc.
I mean, I feel like it's easy to say to have your Emuna antennas up when somebody's taking your cart. You know, obviously not so easy at that moment, but you have people who have been through like some really intense experiences that you would never wish on anybody. How do we expect people who have gone through situations of which I'm speaking, and the audience listening could probably go through their own minds of certain scenarios that Emuna just may be more difficult. Like you make it sound like it's something you can kind of like just switch on.
So it's more of a mindset. As having Emuna in your upper part of your mind allows you to deal with all different situations in a different kind of light. Not that it's going to stop. Let's say, God forbid, somebody went through some kind of abuse, which is obviously kind of abuse, or God forbid, of being attacked or something of that nature. So these are obviously our traumas, and I wouldn't tell somebody, oh, by the way, if you had a trauma, just read about Emuna. I would tell them they really need to confront their trauma and work it through, and perhaps they'd need some medication to take the edge off in order to be able to confront it. At the same time, once they've gone through those, front level, and that was like front like frontal approaches, then I would say at certain points, let's just now think about how can we maybe reframe the experience that you went through, maybe try and find some kind of positive aspect within that, and many times I find that people that have been through all kinds of experiences in life, including myself, like I was bullied as a kid, and I find it's almost like I magnetize.
You were bullied
people.
as a kid?
Can you believe it?
No.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. No, I can see it. So I'm saying, everybody has been through their trauma, challenges, tests, pain in their life, and everybody has to learn how to deal with it. And because we don't want to, God forbid, get to something extreme. Like my son is in Hatzalah, and he had to deal with a suicide call the other day. He's 20 years old. Fortunately, it didn't succeed. So you don't want it to get to that. You want there to be a healthy enough support within a person's life, that they have people they can talk to, that they have a supportive, loving family, community, friends, meaning in their life, that will give them the ability to be able to overcome the challenges that we all have. But it's an amazing thing, and I personally look at it as just clearly like when you're dealt a bad hand, sometimes it's only because sometimes even a bad hand you can win with. You can win with a bad hand, and so that bad hand in the future will often turn out to be your greatest gift, because then you'll be able to. I've helped so many people with their traumas through bullying because of my own experience and my own work.
Can I ask you? Can we delve into this? Like, how bad were you bullied? Like, what is?
So I would say I wasn't like terribly bullied, but it came at a very hectic time, because I was just around the age of bar mitzvah, which is, I think, a very kind of delicate time. And what happened is it was a bit of a trauma. I'd been brought up with so much positivity that when I got into a fight and I didn't win the fight, I just burst my bubble. So that was what was really difficult for me to deal with. Now, when I look back, it's obviously it's a bit of a joke when I think about, compared to the people that I've spoken to and the experiences that they've been through. I'm grateful that I didn't have to go through any of that. At the same time, there's a lot of commonalities. I mean, in psychology, we were once having a discussion when you meet a client, and the client is talking about how they just lost $1 million, or somebody who we can say lo aleinu, shouldn't happen to us, or somebody who's dealing with terminal illness, lo aleinu. Each is equally important, and let's just say it wasn't $1 million. Let's just say it was 5,000 shekels. But for that person, they're in a state of fear. They're going through all the different stages of anxiety, depression, of coming to terms with the difficulty that they're going through with. So it's about acknowledging whatever the degree is of the challenge that person's been through. It's acknowledging that the fact that this is something that they are reacting to is valuable. And that's something that, we try and put across to all of our guys, that it's valuable. Like, it could be that all of their older siblings were all, outstanding learners, but poor little Shmendrik over here never did well in his learning, and he's now the black sheep of the family. Like, but no, look at what you've achieved. Look at what you have done in your own right. Forget about everybody else. Forget about the rest of the family.
Why is it so hard for people, as I'm in this boat, just hard to recognize achievements that you've had? It's so easy to linger on the failures. People laugh at me sometimes now, because even like a small win, I try to celebrate now, because it's just it makes everything just better, celebrating the small wins, and the bigger wins are that much greater. Like, I'm celebrating right now in my head that we're sitting down and doing this podcast. And it's about the fact that I was able to get a guest to come on and find a time and sit down, one after the other, because the follow through has always been like my biggest problem with anything that I do. I'm afraid that I was talking to a friend the other day, like, I'm afraid that, like, this is almost my last chance, like crying wolf. Like, I've told so many people so many times that I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it, and then it doesn't completely follow through. So just kind of like switching up my mindset. And this really feels like you got to do this. You have to follow through, because you can only cry wolf so many times. But what is this kind of disconnect with some people, that they don't celebrate the small wins, that they only focus on the
big accomplishments.
Yeah, why don't they focus on the big or the small accomplishments, and more focus on the things that they didn't accomplish?
So there's a lot of answers to this question. First of all, I think it's amazing, and you should celebrate all of the things that you achieve, because everything is an achievement. And it's a problem today, I don't know especially, but it's a problem today because everything is so accessible, and because everything is viewed as being so easy. We tend to undermine our accomplishments, and everything is an accomplishment. So the fact that we got out of bed in the morning is an accomplishment. The fact that you managed to make your breakfast and enjoy it, and it was the way you wanted it to be.
Things.
Yeah, it's true.
Assuming things.
Yeah, you did make your breakfast, right?
No. Yeah. No.
Okay, fine. Yeah. So at least you had breakfast. But
no, I didn't even have breakfast. Kind of just get out of bed, grab a shower, and then hop to work.
Right. Yeah. So it's multiple things. Sometimes it's that we are living in a world where there's a certain element of a surge of negativity, criticism. We live in a critical world. So that is something that affects us, and it makes us be more self-critical. We also sometimes it's to do with a person's life experience. Could go again to upbringing. If a parent tends to big up their child.
What do you mean big up?
In other words, to appreciate, to compliment, to praise their child for the things that they've done, then a child will grow up with a healthy sense of self-esteem, with a healthy sense of accomplishment. And they won't necessarily need much more than that, because they feel intrinsically that they're good. The problem is that when parents have expectations of their kids, or sometimes when could be it's a personality thing. When a person has is a perfectionist, which, by the way, often I've found is actually genetic. If you look at your parents, you'll often find there's perfectionism on one side or the other, or both. Even in extremely accomplished families, where sometimes in those families they don't look at themselves as being accomplished. So when you grow up with a healthy feeling about yourself, so therefore everything is good, then things are good, and you feel accomplished, and you're happy with what's going on. So I think a part of it is actually relearning how to appreciate ourselves, relearning to look at the small accomplishments, like you said, looking at the small accomplishments. I managed to, if you're in Yiddishkeit, I managed to daven this morning. Okay, I didn't manage to daven 3 times, but I davened once today.
I think that's difficult. Is coming into anything with like this all or nothing kind of like mindset. I feel like being thrown into yeshiva where so many people are wearing black and white and so many people are davening 3 times a day, and the expectation is that you follow it and you daven 3 times a day. But if you're somebody who can't, who struggles, there's a pressure you put on yourself of that you're not necessarily doing the same thing. Why can't I do what that's something that I struggle with. Why can't I do what they're doing? Why haven't I been able to hold on to my Yiddishkeit the same way my friends were able to? I came into yeshiva with friends who were in similar places as I was, or have been in yeshiva a little longer, but the majority of them, not all of them, but the majority of them have been able to keep a from lifestyle where myself and a couple other friends really have struggled.
So I think it's very important to realize that you're an individual, and your experience is going to be vastly different than anybody else's based on all the various different factors that make up who they are, where they're coming from.
But I feel like something's wrong with me because it's like for some reason I want it so badly, but it's like
there's a block.
What am I missing? Yeah, what am I missing?
Right. So that's what you need to think about is what is it that is not giving you the sense of satisfaction. Sometimes it's because of an imagined satisfaction or accomplishment or feeling that you should have there, which is just not realistic. It's a figment of our imagination. For example, Rabborger, I think, says, and others, tefillah isn't supposed to be an amazing experience every single time that you daven to Hashem. Tefillah is ideally supposed to be an experience of where you're getting closer to Hashem in some way. So, meaning that if you were feeling depressed this morning when you got up and you pushed yourself to get out of bed and you put on your tefillin and you said something, Shema, and you maybe did a quick Hamidah, that's amazing. Because for the other person who finds it easy to get up every single morning, gets out of bed, for them, they're going to Shachris is not as valuable as you're struggling getting out of bed and putting on your tefillin. It's literally not as valuable. And actually, I heard that as one of the explanations of why it is that today, why is it that this golus, that this exile is so long? It's just been so long.
It's very long.
It's long. It's way too long. We want it to end already. So as Rav Lugasi explains, because we are living in a generation where the challenges combined make it so much more difficult to be a religious Jew in this generation across the board, regardless of what a person's background is. Why does Hashem do that? Because then when any one of us is choosing that they're going to learn today, or is choosing they're going to daven today, or is choosing they're going to do a mitzvah today, or is choosing that they're going to smile today, then that bit of learning, davening, that mitzvah is worth 1,000 other people that would have been doing that in the previous generation. So it's not to undermine what we can do. Of course, we should all be aspiring to do as much as we can to keep on growing. At the same time, to acknowledge and to embrace and to celebrate, like you said, to celebrate the wins that we've had, because for you it's a win. It's a win that you organized this interview today. So you should celebrate it. It's good. You should be happy about it.
I am. I'm very happy. I'm very happy about it.
And
And I'm happy you were so willing to. Like,
yeah, it's such a pleasure. Yeah, it came at a good time.
Bein Hazmanim seems
Baruch
like a
Hashem.
good time for a lot of people.
Yeah. It definitely tends to work. So better in my schedule, at least.
Do you see like this all or nothing kind of mindset permeate throughout the Jewish community, the Frum community, the Baal Tshuva community?
Yeah, I mean, I think I tend to feel that Jews are much harder on themselves than other people.
It's that Jewish guilt.
It's
What
Jewish
are we
guilt.
guilty for? What do we feel guilty about?
So I once heard that it's not guilt. It's that Hashem gave us an inbuilt drive to achieve, which is unlike any other nation, and that's why you'll find Jews super achieving in all different areas. Like so many Nobel Peace Prize winners have been Jews. So if you're a religious Jew, so then you'll channel that into your Judaism, into your practice. If you're a non-religious Jew, so then you'll start communism. You'll
At least we're overachievers.
yeah, we're all achievers. But at the same time, we don't have rest. Even when we do achieve.
Is that why Hashem gave Shabbos?
Yeah. So that the truth is that is the gift of Shabbos. If we're using Shabbos in the right way, it's the greatest gift. It's the most amazing situation that Hashem created. That every 7 days you can literally just switch off from the rest of all of your obligations, responsibilities, and you just have time for yourself, have time for working on yourself, friendships, family, connection with Hashem spiritually, where are you holding now? Where do you want to be going to? Shabbos is a great time of reflection. It's a tremendous gift that Hashem gave us. And yes, and it could be that he gave it to us because he knew that we're a stiff-necked people. We're a brazen kind of people, and we want to keep on doing more and more and more. So I think that's definitely a part of it. And I mean, there's a Harvard study that says, I think it's something like 85% of a person's thoughts are negative, and which means only 15% of 24 hours of thoughts are going to be, and people literally are walking around thinking that they're crazy. They're thinking they're the only one who's thinking like that.
I've come to this thought that everyone's actually a psychopath just trying to act normal. It's the people who aren't trying to act normal that just let out their psychopath. I think I'm crazy. I think I'm absolutely nuts.
Yeah, so it's a totally normal thing, and there's a lot written about it in the Torah. It's written about extensively.
What's written about it?
Well, the Torah says, "Adam rak ra kol hayom," that man is only evil, is kol hayom, all day. So that sounds pretty bad. Yeah, I mean, that was at the end of Bereshis. Now you could say, okay, so we changed, and then there was the Jewish people, and we are, but nonetheless, that's a part of our Torah. So it's teaching us that we need to be on our guard because our natural inclination is. I once heard that actually that every man is really an Adam Harishon, is really an Adam. Could be every woman's an Eve. I don't know. Is a Chava. But certainly I heard that every man, I think the Maharal says, every man is an Adam Harishon, meaning that he really expects that he should be ruling the world. He should be the man. And therefore, that's what causes all of these feelings of jealousy, low self-esteem, because that comes with the jealousy.
Well, because obviously,
arrogance.
if I ran the world, everything would be perfect.
Right, exactly. If you were running the world, I'd probably be all right with that.
I feel like I would probably rather you be running my world than I struggle running my own world. So
yeah, but that is the that's the mechanisms that we're going through, and people don't realize how normal it is to be going through these, just being bombarded by thoughts, by obsessive thoughts, by negative thoughts, by heretic thoughts. It's a constant bombardment that people by drivers, drives, whether it's all different types of physical drives. Yeah, we're constantly being bombarded by them. It's normal. It's the way that Hashem created us, because He wanted us to get more reward. He wanted us to give us opportunities, and boy, does He give us opportunities every day to work on ourselves. I think a big part of it is that we don't realize that this is normal, and we don't.
Why? Why don't we where has the messaging gone wrong of that we're not the thoughts that we think are actually normal thoughts that we think, and they're not as crazy for you as you think they may be?
So I suppose that first of all, there's just so much nonsense out there, and people assume that everything that they read must have some truth to it, and everything that they hear must have some truth to it.
Or everything that you think.
Everything that you think must have some truth to it. But that's not true. The only absolute truth, and I'm going to sound a little bit Jewish over here, but the only absolute truth is the truth of the Torah. But one of the reasons why the Torah is not just an exclusive law book or storybook is because we're supposed to be working on ourselves. That's the point of learning Torah, is to give us a basis. This is what the Vilna Gaon says, what I heard from the South African chief rabbi, came to speak recently in Ohr Somayach, said that the point of learning is in order for us to have the knowledge and the information and the strength to be able to do the right thing. And so I suppose that where things have gone wrong is that we are living in a world today where, in a world of liberty and freedom of speech, and therefore you can say anything, and people do say anything. But a lot of these thoughts, by the way, that we have, the ethicists, the Bali Musa say you have to push them away. I was like, they're there to be pushed away. The problem is when we start entertaining, when we start engaging, when we start dwelling on those negative thoughts, that's when they become overwhelming. But our job is to push them away. That's what it talks about. When it talks about thoughts, it's interesting. It calls them hirhure halev, which means really thoughts of the heart. But you don't think in your heart. You think in your brain. Yeah, you feel in your heart. So that's the explanation. I actually read from Rav Lugasi. I have to finish this piece one day. I've been working on it for 3 days. Hopefully, I'll get there. And Rav Lugasi says, because Hirurei Alev is when you take a thought that should have just been dispelled and pushed away, and you dwell on it. And then what happens is it festers, it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And then it becomes difficult to deal with. Then it becomes our reality. But it's not really the reality, it's a reality that we've created from dwelling on it. So once we realize that those, so to speak, non-positive thoughts are normal, and our job with them is most of the time is to push them away, and to just try and replace those thoughts with positive thoughts. Come and think of something good. Think of something good that just happened today. Think of something.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you have like any tools that you use or that you try to give to other people to help them push those thoughts away, because it's so easy to just linger on something.
Right. So one thing is have good friends. It says that if a person has a worry in his heart,
If a person what?
has a worry in his heart, he should tell it over to others. I think it was King Solomon, Shlomo Melech said that. That's actually probably, by the way, the basis of therapy today. If you got a worry, go to a therapist, spend $150, and he'll help you feel better for the next couple of hours.
Is there a difference between a worry and telling somebody you worry and like a confession?
Yes, there can be. A worry is often something about something in the future. Worries can be about things that I've done in the past. Often that's connected to depression. I think there was a famous Chinese wise man. I don't know if it was Confucius, but I'm sure it's definitely the Baalei Mussar. The rabbis talk about it as well. That when you worried about the past, that's depression. When you're worried about the future, it's anxiety. So the best thing to do is just live in the present. Just live in the present and just live here in this moment. This is a great moment. I'm loving this. I'm enjoying this.
Also loving this.
All right, it's such a thank you for this great opportunity.
Well, it's always great to see you.
Yeah.
I mean, you always have a positive energy. You always, like, when I'm shaking your hand, are like ready to rip my arm off. It's just so it's infectious. It's infectious. Like, have you always been this Emuna driven, this positive throughout your whole life? Like, what's your journey been? Did you grow up from? What's your journey been?
So I grew up from Shomer Shabbos, Kashrus, but more modern. We don't really have, so to speak, modern Orthodox in England. But I grew up from, but modern. So I was exposed to everything, like any normal, so to speak, modern kid. But I grew up in a religious family. One of the tremendous gifts that I was given is I was given an amazing parents, and my mother is just Kana Nahara. She should live and be well. 120 plus tax. She says these days 180 plus tax, and she's just, Baruch Hashem, an amazing ball of energy and goodness and kindness and compliments and praises. That's just the way that I always remember my mother being. And my father was a Holocaust survivor. So, from age 8, he lost his parents. So I kind of had this dichotomy, because on the one hand, my mother was super positive. On the other hand, my father was very grateful. But at the same time, he had a lot of heaviness, because he lost his family as a young kid.
How was it growing up with a parent as a Holocaust survivor?
So it was amazing in certain ways, because he just wanted us to be happy, his children, myself and my older brother, of blessed memory, of which passed away a few years ago. and so we grew up really being, spoilt in a certain kind of way, which was good and better, because I think that was probably, as we spoke about the bullying before, like why my bubble was burst so much, because I grew up almost in this like idyllic kind of childhood until that point. Almost I couldn't imagine like any negativity until that happened. Same time, of course, it was there was definitely this. There's a lot of discussion about Holocaust survivors. Baruch Hashem, my father was considering what he went through, was an extremely positive person. He was extremely proud of us, and at the same time, like, you do realize as a kid, that like, I don't have grandparents, what happened to them, and understanding that, and also not understanding that, and yeah, I mean, my parents also got married later, waited for kids for a while, so it was it was an amazing upbringing, but it's kind of like almost like being brought up by a grandfather rather than a father in certain kinds of ways.
How old was your father when the war ended?
He would have been 15.
Oh wow.
Yeah, 14, 15.
Still alive?
No.
I was gonna say, I'd love to talk to him.
Yeah, he did actually a Shoah video with Steven Spielberg. Shoah Foundation basically did like hours and hours of like recording his story about his parents, what happened to him, what he saw.
Was this in like a virtual setting that like now you can go to a museum and kind of like talk to him?
So it was you can't talk to him, but you can hear his experience. And
do any stories stand out to you?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch. One of the outstanding ones is that he left his parents at 8 years old. And he was there during Kristallnacht. He had to like hide under the table. But my grandmother, my Bubba, Aleha Shalom, of blessed memory, she went to the police station, and she went there where my grandfather and my uncles had been arrested, and she fought with them until they released them. So she essentially saved my uncle's lives. So that was an amazing thing to show like the strength of Yiddish mama. Well, same time he had his bar mitzvah. His bar mitzvah present was like a bar of chocolate. I often tell my kids when they're busy devouring a whole bar of chocolate, I say like that's what Zayda had for his bar mitzvah present. so and I definitely have, as I said, I've had lots of different challenges along the way. It wasn't so much to do though with my upbringing. My upbringing was, generally speaking, was a very positive upbringing, with good parents, Baruch Hashem, with positive parents. A lot of the challenges that I had in life kind of came later on. The Holocaust, I think it kind of gave me a feeling that of purpose, because I'm really the only one of the only remaining Borgers, at least from my father's line. I'm actually the only of that line now. Baruch Hashem, now we've got Baruch Hashem 5 boys, so we have Baruch Hashem more Borgers to expand from, please God, and Be'ezus Hashem. But yeah, I'm like the one remaining Borger. So when it comes to saying Kaddish, like often I'm the one saying Kaddish.
You're the line's anchor.
Yeah, I'm the line's anchor. Even though there are, Baruch Hashem, there are like my aunts who had, Baruch Hashem, many children. But in terms of Borgers, yeah, the Borger ends here, which is, yeah, even though there are lots of Borger ranches around, and there's Imburger and there's Borger Baby Burger, you know.
So funny.
Yeah, so we got that. So Baruch Hashem, I'm very grateful to Hashem for giving me the parents that He gave me, and for giving me the upbringing that I had, and even for the challenges along the way, even though they do continue to haunt me, but
your challenges continue to haunt you.
Yeah, like in other words, even till today, sometimes, like, you know, whatever it is, the bullying or different certain things, it pops up, and so just trying to kind of like to just push through again, like we said, like those thoughts, just to push them away and carry on. A tool, I mean, I've myself have gone to various different kinds of therapies along the way. I mean, I did a course, as I said, in therapy, so you have to go through your own therapy. Plus, I needed therapy.
Yeah. So they say all therapists have a therapist.
All therapists have a therapist.
Where do you find what? Is there a harm in? I'm sure you have a Rav. You have a rabbi that you go to.
Yeah.
Is there a harm in treating your rabbi like your therapist?
So, personally, I don't think so. If you can have an open enough relationship. When in therapy, we were taught that you have your rabbi hat and you have your therapist hat. When you're a rabbi, your students, your talmidim will look at you differently. And there's going to be certain areas that they're not going to be able to feel comfortable talking to you about. When you're a therapist, so you're a therapist. So now they can feel totally comfortable, safe to be able to discuss everything. Personally, as a rabbi, as a rebbe, and as a trained therapist, which is one of the main reasons why I did therapy, actually, because so many things were coming up with my students, and I didn't feel I had the resources to deal with them, and to know when to refer and what's a serious situation. I found that when there's an open enough and safe enough environment created with a Rebbe, then there's no reason why a student can't discuss everything with their Rebbe like a therapist, and it's much cheaper. I mean, of course, I want therapists to make the money that they deserve. Obviously. But if honestly. If people would have time and would have good friends or family members that have had life experience to talk to, then I don't think people would really need therapists. It's just that that today, because as we said before, the pace of life is so quick that people don't have time to even think about themselves. Once upon a time, a person would have time in their day to think about themselves, where they're going, what they're doing. Instead, being that we have this inbuilt kind of like negative antenna picking up on like negative thoughts, so then often what we do is we end up just absorbing and then sometimes dwelling on those thoughts, and then, well, what are you going to do with that? Now you feel so hopeless, so worthless. What are you going to do? So now you have to go to a therapist and discuss it. But a Rebbe can definitely I mean, I actually. I've unloaded on my Rebbe. I asked him. I saw in Zettel Cotton, which is written by the Rabbi Melech from Lezhinsk, he writes there that everybody should have a person that they can just completely unload to about all of their thoughts, the most strange, the most negative, abusive thoughts, just unload to somebody everything. And then when you do that, it's one of the greatest tactics against the Yetzer Hara, against the evil inclination, as we said, who's constantly trying. His job is to try and test us and to try and pull us down. If you just let everything go, a guy goes and starts like telling his Rebbe about all of his crazy fantasies, that he was having, and then like his Rebbe like tells him like, that's like it's completely normal, but obviously it's not doing good for you because it's making you feel bad about yourself. So rather like whatever it is, get married, or just find another way to keep your mind active and not thinking about those things. But now he just let a gigantic it's just like a gigantic weight off his shoulders, because he's like, I'm normal. People think about it. I just let go of all of that negative energy. I'm free. And the truth is that if we would do this and find a friend, or find somebody that you feel that you can trust. Sometimes it does need to be somebody who's had more life experience. It doesn't always have to be. It doesn't have to necessarily have to be in terms of age, but has had life experience. They can really change your life, because you can unload to them, they can unload to you, and it's all gone. Instead of having to spend so long dwelling and working through different things, you can just let it go. Yeah, of course, like you will discuss things. Yeah, go ahead.
No, so I have two questions. One pertaining to friends, because you brought up friends a few times and the importance of having friends. And then also, and maybe we'll start with this. What is your ideal Rebbe? Like, what is in your mind the function of a Rebbe supposed to be?
So a Rebbe, as opposed to a posek, or opposed to a Rav that you go to for halachic questions, a Rebbe is supposed to be somebody that you can totally open up to.
Should all of these be different? A Rebbe, a Rav, a posek?
It can be the same person. It's unusual. It's probably helpful, honestly, if it is the same person, because sometimes the decision he'll give will very much depend on who you are. If he knows that you struggle with OCD, let's say, so he's going to give you a vastly different answer to a Rob that you go to when you say to him, well, do I have to? I mean, I've dealt with so many guys about this who are so depressed because they're not doing what they're supposed to do, because they constantly have that thought, I'm supposed to do this, I'm supposed to do this. And I tell them, like, you're not supposed to do this. This is a gift. If you want to do it, look at it in that way. You're choosing. You're choosing to do it. Just because, A, B, and C, are doing it. So that doesn't mean that this means that now this is a given that you absolutely have to do this. So somebody who's got OCD and is going into Pesach night, and they're being told that they have to eat is exactly a certain amount of matzah within a certain amount of time, and this amount of maror within a certain amount of time, it can be a night. It can turn their simchas yontav, their joy of Yom Tov.
I'm imagining
into
it,
actually,
and it sounds torturous.
yeah. Whereas the Rav who knows you, not you, but he knows me, and he knows that I'm suffering from OCD. He's going to tell me, don't worry about it. Just eat it in your time, in your at your pace. Yeah, or take a smaller amount and try and finish that amount, at least within that amount of time, within the longest amount of time that the rabbis hold that you can go with. So it does help if you can have all of them bound together in the same person. It's difficult because obviously when somebody knows you, you have to spend a lot longer with them discussing all of the different challenges that they have. And it does need time. It's, child bias issue like that. There are rebbeim that they talk not only to their student, they'll talk to the couple, and they'll often they'll talk to them multiple times to help them with their challenges, whether it's early on in marriage, whether it's later on in marriage, whether it's a certain stage of marriage, marrying off kids. People can really. And I would say should really speak to their Rav about everything.
So back to the ideal Rav, back to the ideal Rebbe. What in your mind is the ideal Rebbe? What should people be searching out when they're looking for this person?
So it should be somebody that they feel that they respect, that that understands them, that gets them. That wants the best for them. Like in other words, he genuinely cares about you. There are rebbeim and parents that can be quite abusive in terms of because they have expectations of their children or of their students. So it should be a rebbe that is on your side, genuinely cares about you, wants your best and understands you, and is available. That's a very cool one.
Availability is always the most difficult.
Yeah, available is difficult.
Schedule and time gets chewed up real fast.
Yeah, it's not easy when a Rav has so many. But if it's the right thing, then things will work.
Do you find a lot of Bochurim kind of look up to their Rebbe as almost like a father figure? And do you think that's an issue, making your Rebbe a father figure?
I think it's actually quite healthy to look at a Rebbe as a father figure, because
looking for his approval.
Perhaps in that way. Maybe in that, maybe also for approval. In fact, I would say that is a part of the relationship. It's important. It's very important for a Rebbe to praise his student, also to when he sees he's doing something that isn't what he should be doing, to also to be able to tell him to tell him that he needs to change his ways at different instances. In a way, a Rebbe is a father. He's like a father who's spiritual father. Who's taking his Talmidim into the next world. In fact, there's actually halachas about this. Like, what happens if you find you find a lost object belonging to your Rebbe or to your father? So whose object are you obligated to? Let's say you can only take one right now. Which one are you obligated to deal with? So it says, if the Rebbe is being supported by the father, then in that case one should take father's object. first, but if not, then you should take the Rebbe's object first. So you see over here that it's actually the Gemara there says that's because the father brought his son into this world, and the Rebbe is bringing his Talmud into the next world. So it goes to show like how dynamic and how powerful that relationship is, and of course not to in any way, and any good Rebbe of course will be encouraging his Talmidim to have a very good and very close relationship with his father, and they will tell him that his father should come before the Rebbe. For example, like when it came to a bris, so if somebody would ask Rabbi Yashiv of blessed memory to be the sandik to hold the baby by the bris, so Rabbi Yashiv would always ask, have the grandfathers already been asked? And if they hadn't been asked, he would refuse to be the sandik. He said, you have to put your father first, or your father-in-law first. That's no question.
You've talked about this idea of like going to you talk about this idea of the rabbi helping like the son into Olam Haba. Why are we so worried about Olam Haba? I mean, we say Torah lo b'shamayim, right? Torah lo b'shamayim.
Yeah, but that's not that's said in a different context.
Okay.
Yeah,
but because my from what I've deduced about Judaism, maybe I'm wrong, but I kind of like the idea, is that Torah is focused more on what we're doing here in this world rather than focusing on what is in the next world, because this is where the party is really. Like, this is where the merit comes in. This is where you can grow, and right. where and I'm just making assumptions again of things that I've heard, where other religions are really focused on the afterlife, do everything for the afterlife rather than do what you have to do for here.
So when the rabbis are focusing on a person taking somebody into the next world, it's really in the context of them allowing them to be the best person that they can be in this world. That's really what it means. It means that a person who's going to allow you to maximize your potential in this world is really the person that's enabling you to maximize your potential in the next world. That's really what it means. Torah la b'shamayim, Torah not being in heaven, is said in the context of that down here on earth, it's the rabbis. But we follow the majority. We follow the majority of the rabbis. It's the rabbis that make the decisions about things in this world. And even if, therefore, a heavenly voice would come out and would tell you that this brand of chocolate with a halal hechsher is kosher on Pesach, nonetheless, if the rabbis say that it's not kosher, you wouldn't be allowed to eat it on Pesach. Yeah, as an example, it's not to do with the next world, that statement. So
can't that power be abused? The idea of just giving Torah into the hands of men.
So it's being used in the context of where you have a halachic decision that needs to be concluded, and then you have certain rabbis that are holding A, and another group of rabbis that are holding B. So then, who are you going to follow? So you might think that you should follow the wisest of that group of rabbis. But in certain circumstances, we wouldn't say that. If the other rabbis held strongly that their opinion is the right opinion, even though it's against somebody who's seemingly more wise than them, that they can't even refute, but they just know this is the right thing, then we would go after the majority.
Why? Why not follow the
Why not
The
follow
wisest,
the
even though
wise?
we know he's the wisest.
Because sometimes just because he's the wisest doesn't mean that it's going to be the right thing for the people in that generation, or it's going to be the right thing for the majority of the people. It could be he's the wisest, but he's also
But he's like the wisest in regards to where he's holding rather than the cloth.
yeah, in terms of like where he's holding, and might make it more difficult, therefore, for other people to hold that. Or it could be that the rabbis feel that people need more, they need to hold the more stringent opinion. Let's say it's the more that the wiser rabbi, so to speak, is holding by a more lenient opinion, and the majority of holding, which is actually the example given in the Gemara, in one place, where they were purifying certain types of foods that were made in an oven, and so the Rabbi Eliezer, the great Rabbi Eliezer, said, like, all the things that were made in that oven, since the oven was broken apart and put back together, that was considered to be like a new oven, everything's good. And the other rabbi said, like, no, just breaking it apart, putting it back together like Lego, that's not destroying the oven and making a new oven. And even though Rabbi Eliezer had a very, very good rational explanations of different, they said that's not what we hold, and we go after the majority, because they must have felt that it wasn't going to give the people the right amount of either fear of heaven, if they just think, so everything's pure, everything's good. Maybe they would learn the wrong thing. See, one has to learn each particular scenario based on what it happens to be.
Are you sure Torah's true?
100%.
How?
Because I have seen it in my life. Through different things that I've learnt, where there's an idea, there's a concept that when you talk to Hashem when you pray, and He talks to you when you learn. And I've seen multiple times when I've been working through a particular thing in my life, could be halachically, could be ashkafically, and literally like that day or the next day, there'll be the answer there in what I'm learning. So I see in others, like through my experience, I see that it's true. Of course, then there's so many different things that have been, come, like I often teach like a parsha share. It's one of the things that I try and do. If anybody wants to join in, they're more than welcome to find out from you how to join the group. Or
we'll do that at the end.
Yeah, so we'll do that at the end. But, and try and give parsha, and it just always blows my mind how the parsha is always directly connected to current events. Like, for example, the parsha after October 7th mentioned more times than anywhere else in the Torah the word Hamas. And by the way, one of the translation of the word Hamas by Onkelos is Chatufim, which means hostages. That's how it translates the word Hamas.
Isn't the normal translation thievery?
Yeah, sometimes it's thievery, but it can mean. But that's the thing about the Lashon HaKodesh, the words in the Torah. It's a holy language. It can be understood on multiple levels. It doesn't necessarily have to mean one thing. It can mean multiple different things. So I just see this constantly happening all the time, and so it's a living Torah. It's called the Eitz Chaim Hi. It's called the tree of life, and trees produce fruit. So so the fruit that we produce is our understanding of the Torah and our novelties, our chidushim that we bring, that we find in the Torah, and it's constantly. It's all in there. Kula Bay, like everything's in it. So I know 100% that the Torah is true. I mean, there's so many different, anyway, like archaeological proofs of the Torah, and as the.
But would you hold then that, because this is part of my thinking about Torah and Shem Mitzvahs and coming to some sort of realization, is that just like a guitarist can't become a professional guitarist and really lose themselves in the truth of what music can do until he studies guitar, music in general, would you hold the same by Torah, that you can't actually see the truth within Torah unless you've been learning it?
Yeah, I mean, that's an explicit verse that King David said. It says, Ta'amu u'ra'u ki tov Hashem. It says, taste, and you'll see that Hashem is good. It's only when you've tasted Torah, when you've learnt it, when a person's been to yeshiva, when you've lived it and you've tasted it, that's when you'll see it. So that's why so many people who haven't done that don't understand it, and they have a very, sometimes very skewed perspective on what it is. But it's actually, learning Torah is life. It's not like any other subject. It's not like I studied medicine, and now then I did the specialization, and that now makes me a doctor in a certain area. Now I'll have all of my patients. Rather, it means that all the time I'm able to take all the different scenarios that are going on in my life, and of course it's a constant. Every day is something new, and every part of the year there's something new going on. There's always like a freshness and a newness like going on. We're coming up to Pesach now. It's like everybody's cleaning for Chametz. It's like there's a certain excitement in the air, and and then there's the humility, like the cleaning, getting under the scrubbing. There's something there that just humbles us, which is really what Pesach is supposed to be about.
But if the taste of Torah is where the truth lies, then you found you co-founded this program, the Ohr Chodosh program, for a reason. Where did the taste go wrong for some people? Because if emes is emes and emes is emes, then you would think that if you're learning emes, how could you go wrong? Great question.
So I'd say the classic answer: don't judge Judaism by the Jews. Meaning that there's a misconception that religious Jews must be either perfect or must be doing the right thing. And therefore, if I see religious people doing the wrong thing, then that's a reflection on Judaism. It's a reflection on the Torah. The Gemara says that there's two people that Hashem cries over. I can't remember, the Hashem or the Shekhinah, Divine Presence, cries over. One of them is people who teach Torah that shouldn't be teaching Torah, and number two is people that should be teaching Torah that are not teaching Torah. So, unfortunately, amongst, and he says in Pirkei Avos, in Ethics of the Fathers, Lo hakapta balamed, somebody who's angry shouldn't be a teacher. Unfortunately, there's way too many people who are angry who are teachers, and like on the one hand that's a product of teaching, meaning if you're dealing with 30 kids in a class with one rabbi or one teacher in a girls' school, and she's got 35 kids in her class, it's a very difficult task to give all of those 35 kids exactly what they need. So number one is is that sometimes they don't get the right taste because the method of teaching is not always right for every single student. Some kids are better audio learners, some kids are better visual learners, some kids are better at language, other people are more analytical thinkers. So whatever a person's forte is, that's what should be focused on. The problem is that when you're dealing with a system, it has to be done in a structured way, because if it's not, then you've lost everything. So there has to be a structure, there has to be a mainstream, and that's what there is. But not everybody can be mainstreamed. Not everybody should be mainstreamed, and not everybody necessarily connects to a certain, the kids change schools multiple times. We don't have a problem with, when we as adults change our professions or change our goal in life, or we suddenly discover something about it. We don't have a problem with that. But in education, somehow if this kid went to that school, so all the kids have to go to that school. That's not true. There's other schools out there, and like I said, like Baruch Hashem, thank God, the system is developing, is evolving. Is obviously is a strange word to use for a Jew sometimes, but the
I know there's some. Are there some? Whatever, we don't have to get into
evolution.
Anyway,
but there is a concept of evolving with that certainly fits in within the Torah, and the system is evolving and it's developing and it's improving all the time.
Do you see that it's getting better? It's gotten better in recent years, or is there still a lot of work to do? Yeah, because it seems like a lot of these out of the box kids feel almost shunned by the system that is.
So a part of the challenge is giving these kids the ability to find their way. As it says, you should educate each person, each young man, apidarko, according to his way, meaning that everyone has their own way. We all have our own way. There is, of course, a general path that we need to follow. That's there's the 613 mitzvahs, but then of course there's the rabbinical ones, then there's the customs, then there's all different things, then there's all different ways to approach life. Then so there's so many different ways that we can find our way. These kids need to be given the opportunity to find their way. And it's actually very interesting. I once heard, I think it's from Rabbi Pesach Krohn, he said that the word for educate in that verse is spelled chanoich, which means educate, is spelled without the letter vav. Should be spelled ches nun vav chaf, but it's actually spelled there without the vav. It's spelled ches nun chaf, which is fine because you don't absolutely need the vav, but usually it should be there. So he explained, I don't remember the name of who now, that it's going to teach us that even if you've got a kid that is missing something, you still got to teach him according to his way. Even if you've got a kid who's special needs, they also could have a portion in learning. Actually, I met a Down syndrome boy yesterday, and he said his uncle, who's a rabbi, is about to finish Mishnah. It's actually about the Beis Hamikdash, and he was so excited about the Beis Hamikdash, and he was showing me the pictures inside and everything. And he's saying, and I said, you got to tell me, Yehuda, when you make that siyum, you have to tell me, because he's learning Torah. He's Downs, but he's learning Torah, and he understands what he understands. It could be he understands everything. So the problem is the system don't judge Judaism according to the Jews, meaning that what right do people have to judge these kids that are struggling? What right do people have to shun them from their communities? So sometimes they do have a right because they want to protect their communities. Sometimes when kids are going off, so there could be a negative influence on the other kids. So these are very difficult decisions that have to be made by people with very big shoulders. But even if, like, there's so many places that speaking to these to our Renewal Ohr Chodosh boys, there's one guy's got a hub in his community, which is just a place where they hang out and they just they just chill. They got games, they got snooker, they've got they got ping pong and all different things.
How many guys do you have in the program right now?
So right now is a good question.
Okay.
We had a bunch that left because we did it for 50. We did supposed to be 5 months and 5 months.
How much did you have?
So we had 18. We had 17 or 18.
Not bad for the first year, yeah.
Yeah, Baruch Hashem. Yeah, now we've got about 10, 11, 12, which is great. It's great, and they've got access to all the Rabbi Breitowitz. They've got all the great Rebbeim there in Ohr Somayach that are there anyway, and now they can speak to them. And they can ask their questions, which sometimes, depending where they were and who they were speaking to, they might have got either shunned or kicked out of their school, or or some corporal punishment, depending what it was, or depending who they asked. And
is corporal punishment still a thing in religious?
No, not really. But they might have got a slap, or they might have got in other words, depending. Also, some of these also have to bear in mind, some of these kids are, they have their issues. It's not for nothing that it didn't work for them in the system sometimes. Major ADHD, ODD.
What's ODD?
Oppositional defiant disorder, which is kids who refuse to follow instructions. Anybody tells them,
any sort of authority figure,
authority figure, yeah, including their parents, and in school, any authority figure, they will do the opposite. They will ignore it. So for the teachers, it's very difficult as well. You can't blame the teachers. We can't blame the system. Sometimes there are kids, and sometimes when you're dealing with ADHD, it's an ADHD guy or girl will often do wonderfully if they're learning with somebody one-on-one. It's just they're so easily distracted that as soon as somebody else is asking a question, they're they're out the door, or they're...
This is one of the reasons I find it very difficult to daven with Sephardi minions, because they say everything out loud, and I'm just be quiet. I'm trying to focus on saying my words. It's okay. Can't you just say it quietly?
There's a reason Hashem made you Ashkenazi.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's yeah. The Sephardim love it. It's funny.
I'm sure, and maybe it helps them. Maybe Sephardim are just way more focused. Way more able to focus. But I'm I've started when I'm in Sephardi minions, I'll just say it with whoever's davening, because for me to try to do it at my own pace is just a lost cause.
Yeah. I totally get that. Yeah, it's that's what we just wanted to try and be there for these kids, because they were they couldn't be mainstreamed. As I said, of course, now Baruch Hashem, there's so many new yeshivas, programs, rebbeim, tutors, psychologists, psychiatrists, life coaches that are out there to be able to help these kids. Talking about kids, we're talking about we're trying to take guys who are 20 plus, once they've been through their exciting
Is there a reason
phases.
why you chose the age that you did?
So we didn't want to be taking guys that are not at the level of maturity that they're ready to want to hear and want to learn and want to work on themselves. And we I mean, I teach in other programs that there's 18, 17 to 9 to 20-year-olds, and the level of maturity is vastly different between an 18-year-old and a 20-year-old. They've been through a lot in those 2 years, and they develop a lot. So that's one reason we wanted to have more mature guys that genuinely want to give it another chance, genuinely want to find the answers to their questions, have figured out what their questions are. Sometimes they've already been through therapy, even though it was I very much wanted it to be, didn't work out exactly. A prerequisite that guys are going to therapy. If it gets to a point where the therapist says that they're done, so okay, but halavai, if only that would be. There's a different kind of dynamic when they're at that stage, whether if they've been working that point until that point, if they've been they've often gotten to a point where they've got some responsibility, they're able to function, even though we have had challenges along the way.
Challenges.
Yeah, and
challenges.
Baruch Hashem, and so we Baruch Hashem, we've seen a lot of growth. And
do they work while they're in the program? Like, do they work outside, or is it kind of like an actual yeshiva program where you're learning and?
So that was actually a difference of approach, and it ended up being it was originally going to be an internship program. I felt that we need to give them as much time and as much of a chance to really to ask their questions, work on them, on their Judaism. And if a guy particularly wants to do an internship, so then fine. Like we'll organize it as there have been. There was at least one guy who did do an internship, but I felt that these guys need to confront their Judaism. They need to confront themselves, and they need to have time to do that, and they need to be in that environment. And I believe that Baruch Hashem, it was the right decision. And even though could be that perhaps one or two of them could have done better, having some kind of work going on there. But it gave them the opportunity to really to focus. It's definitely still a work in progress.
But are you seeing success with some of these? Some of the guys?
Absolutely. Yeah, Baruch Hashem. They like many of them came in not keeping Shabbos, or keeping Shabbos now. Came in not wanting to learn, or learning now. Have set up times to continue learning. They've developed emotionally, socially. So, some of these kids often.
Well, something you talked about is not just a rabbi, but friends, having a good friend group.
Right,
can
and
really
so they really had a good bond between them. It was a really good group of guys. Hashem was very kind to us, and at the beginning it was too good to be true, because it really was, actually, because then by the time we started the second Zman, it was there was less participation and different things, but Baruch Hashem, we worked through it, and we're definitely constantly trying to improve and give the guys what they really need. And there was a lot of emotional work that needed to be done. Yeah,
I'm sure you have to go see your therapist afterwards.
Yeah. I have to find one.
Yeah. I don't have one for you.
Okay, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, I'm sure you will.
That's okay. I got my Rebbe. I can just unload.
What is something that you think the Jewish community should be talking about that maybe we're not talking about?
Well, I think the biggest challenge that we have and have had um, is the gigantic dichotomy between Jews, and I think that it's something that really needs to be focused on, and it is focused on quite a bit. The idea of Achdus, clearly after October 7th, we saw it was the gigantic rifts in Israeli society that unfortunately have come back in recent months. Just to realize that the intrinsic value of every single Jew, and that we are all, not to denigrate non-Jews also, of course, have a value. It's different for Jewish people, based on the idea, the understanding of souls, etc. We're not going to get into that right now, but just to say that that's clearly what we've been suffering from. And it's something that keeps coming up over and over again. If we look, like it was when we received the Torah, Vayichen, we camped together as one. And now, of course, this doesn't mean that, a chassid should be like, embracing some, some secular guy who he doesn't relate to at all in terms of his direction in life. But what I think should be happening which I think it does, but it's not necessarily implemented it could be worked on, is that I love that. I love that Jew. That's my brother. And it doesn't matter that he looks different, that he acts different. He's still intrinsically my brother, and I love him. And that's what. And if only that would also. I don't know how you can work on secular, certain groups of secular Jews, but I think the gaps are being bridged, because there were many Rabbanim that were talking on TV channels, and now you've got Hidabrut, you've got so many like outreach organizations that are designed for Bali Tshuva, and you have hundreds of thousands of people that have done Tshuva or doing Tshuva in the last year or so, or have strengthened in some area, which is also a form of Tshuva. So I think that that's one thing, is to realize the intrinsic connection that we all have, that we're all one, we all come from one father, from Yaakov Avinu, and the Gerei Tzedek, the righteous converts, are also there by Mount Sinai as well. Their souls were there. They couldn't join us then, but they're coming to join us, and they have joined us, and they're going to continue to join us as time is going on. So I think that's something that really needs to be emphasized. Like I said, within the religious community, there needs to be more of a focus on directly teaching about Emuna and Bitachon. It's very much overlooked.
How so? Why? It feels like such a integral part of Yiddishkeit.
So it's
Judaism.
true.
I've heard people be like, they don't like it being called Yiddishkeit or Yid because it's like specifically to, I guess, Ashkenaz or the Yiddish type people. But when I hear Yid, I just think Jew. So
Yeah. Yid just does have a break. I heard the word Yid actually comes from the word Yud, because a Yud, the letter Yud, which is how you would say it in Yiddish, is a Yid. Is because every single one of us is just, when we humble ourselves, like that letter Yud, which is the smallest letter in the Hebrew alphabet. That's what we have to realize, is that we may be small, but we are. Without that Yud in the Torah, that Torah scroll would not be would be invalid, would be possible, would be invalid. So every single yid.
Well, also like hangs there. I feel like the yid has an infinite amount of possibilities.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's in the mainstream system, the Torah has always been taught in a way that there's the written Torah, and there's the oral Torah, and there's, when it's taught as a subject that is something that we need to learn and to perfect and to memorize, it's taking the in a way, it's taking the soul out of it. It's making it like any other subject that you learn. So Baruch Hashem, like we've been we're fortunate, Baruch Hashem, that our kids have had various different teachers along the way that were very good, that were inspiring, that always taught them stories. And our girls are always being told stories as well. Of course, every kid has their challenges. We definitely have had around found money, but I find it should be taught as a subject within itself about the idea of Emuna. Now, sometimes it is taught within the realm, and it comes up like many times.
But you think it should be its own specific subject that is taught?
Yeah. In other words, as whether it will be as part of a, like you'll start off with like a morning, like talking about like Emuna, or that it should be something which is put into the curriculum in the middle of everything, or that the teachers should be emphasizing elements of our relationship with Hashem. It's not that we just, I'm learning about, how many rows I have to check, to see where the chametz is. if I go down to my, to my cellar with my, 2,000, like.
How's your Pesach cleaning going?
Baruch Hashem, I'm happy to take a break. Baruch Hashem is going well. We did our big shop this morning, and we've turned over. So now it's just a matter of keeping the little kids, making sure that they're aware. They're pretty good. Aware that they need to keep chametz out of the house, and we're very limiting in terms of how much chametz we actually have anyway around right now. So Baruch Hashem, so we're pretty good. My wife started cooking, so we're good, and that's always good, because like there's this stage in between that you'll understand. It's Hashem one day with your own kids, please God. That there's a stage in between where there's like kids are like, we don't have food. We don't have any food. Like we don't have, meaning like we don't have all the food that we want or that we used to, or meaning psychologically, because I know that I don't have the regular food around. So psychologically, I now feel like I'm starving. Sure. So there's a lot of there's those stages that need to be dealt with. So when an Eishes Chayil is cooking in their kitchen and there's food coming out, then the kids are happy.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
With Pesach coming up, do you want to leave us with a quick vort?
Yeah. Beautiful idea. Based on what we were saying before, is in terms of unity. We were all one people. It's very interesting. We have the famous, song V'hi She'amda. Yeah, like and this is what stood for us, for our fathers, and for us. That wasn't only one generation that our enemies tried to destroy us, but rather in every generation. The Shebachal Davador, in every generation, Omdim Aleinu L'Chalotenu. Yeah, they're standing up over us. L'Chalotenu, and to destroy us, and Hashem saves us from their hands. So it's very interesting. The Sfas Emes, the second Gerer Rebbe, says this is what stood for us. It doesn't say what stood for us. So there's lots of different explanations. Some people say it was the Torah. Some people say Emuna. It was our belief throughout the generations that kept us going and that helped us to overcome our enemies. Some people say it's tefillah, that's prayer. Sfas Emes says that, what was it? Shelo echad bilvad. That when we're not one, you can read it in that way. Not in only one generation. You can read it as shelo echad bilvad. It was only when we weren't one, when we weren't united. That's when they stood up to destroy us. When we're not united, that's when the Jews are in danger. Actually, Sinwar Yimach Shemoy Zichroy said that. He said, we saw that the Jews were in a time of disarray and machloikas and animosity between them. Now's the time to attack. That's what he said. Now is the time to attack. So that's one thing. And then another beautiful idea connected to that is that it says that there was an Aramean who wanted to kill my father. Yeah, Rami Ovid Avi. And we know that was Lavan. Yeah, Lavan, when Yaakov was there setting up his family. So Lavan, the Aramean, his father-in-law, we should all have good father-in-laws. Baruch Hashem, I've got a good one. That he tried to kill him. Yeah, which is based on that he wanted to kill. There was a certain point when Lavan wanted to kill Yaakov. So, but it's very interesting because if you look at the language there, it says Arami Ovid Avi, that Lavan is destroying my father. Not that he wants to destroy, not that he attempted to destroy, but Ovid, he is destroying my father. So, what? Lavan's trying to destroy Yaakov today. So the Chida, Rav Chaim Yosef David Azulai, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, explains that he says, what did Lavan do? Lavan knew that Yaakov wanted to marry Rachel. So he set Yaakov up. And instead he ended up, after 7 years, he ended up marrying the wrong woman. He ended up, in his mind, marrying Leah. Because he was such a nice guy. So he stayed together with Leah. Yeah, and Lavan said, oh, don't worry. In a week's time, yeah, as soon as you finish the Sheva Brachas, the celebration of 7 days, you get to marry Rachel. 7 days later, he's married to Rachel.
I thought it was 7 other years more. He gets married and then works another 7 years, right?
So he had to work. He got married to her 7 days later, but he had to still work for 7 years in order to fulfill his contract to be married to her. What a nice guy Lavan was. Put yourself in Leah's shoes. Imagine what it's like to have your younger sister suddenly marrying your husband after 7 days. Finish the Sheva Brachas and your baby sister comes in, she marries your husband. Not only that, you know that your husband wants to be married to her. And then now, you wait.
Why did Leah even go through with it?
Well, she wanted to be married. She wanted to marry Yaakov. She cried that she should marry Yaakov. That's one of the places that we learn the power of tefillah. She was able to totally usurp her sister from being able to marry her husband, and marry him first, thereby potentially meaning that her younger sister would never be able to marry him. That was the power of her prayer. Yeah, it says she cried and cried that she shouldn't have to marry the other brother, who was Esav. Right? She didn't want to marry him. Not. Actually, truth is, they say had she married him, everything would have been okay, because then she would have put him in this place. Yeah, but that's not what happened. So what happened is, Lavan created this system of hatred, or jealousy between two sisters. had their children, and then the hatred or the jealousy continued. And that is something which is still continuing until
Permeating
today.
with us today.
Yeah, so even today, Lavan's still destroying us because of that jealousy. Yeah, looking at life in a different way, saying, I've got it right, you've got it wrong, you're not doing the right thing, this is what you need to do, I'm doing the right thing. Still permeates, still destroying us until today. And that's what we have to work on. If we work on Shalach Echad Bilvad, when we're not one, that's when they attack. But if we're one, then there's no danger to us. So Hashem should help us be able to work on that, to realize the intrinsic value of every single Jew, every single Yid, whether he's uncomfortable or not. Then please God, just like it says then in Nisan we were redeemed, please God now in Nisan we'll also be redeemed.
Oh man. Rabbi, there's a camera over my shoulder that's pointing directly at you. If you could tell people how they can get in touch with you for more of your learning, or also how they get in touch with the new Chodosh program.
Absolutely. So I'll be very happy to hear from anybody. I have daily shiurim, so you can contact me by email on rabborger@gmail.com. And if anybody's interested, and you know anybody that might be interested in the Ohr Chodosh Renewal Program, you can find that on the Ohr Somayach website, which is www.ohr, which is ohr.edu, and then apply, and you'll find different programs there, and look up Renewal or Ohr Chodosh. You'll find us there. And wishing you well. Thank you for listening.
Rabborger, this has been awesome.